Hello, guys. Welcome to the stream. I would appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. It would really help out the channel. It's Tell the Truth Monday. And yesterday kind of sucked, didn't it? Against the Rams. We started off really well. That's a truth. Everyone kind of freaked out. That's a truth. I freaked out a little bit too. That's the truth. We also did play really well and missed a bunch of opportunities. And the Rams took advantage of opportunities. That's the truth. And unfortunately, we can't really correct any opportunities and really focus on game planning for this 49ers team because we have to play them in 3 days now because all the players are, for the most part, going home. I bet the coaches are going to be definitely crunching right now, but we got to play them on Thanksgiving. And another truth is that regardless of it being Thanksgiving, the fact that it's a Thursday game means, like most teams, you don't really have any opportunity to game plan. Not that the coaches are incapable of game planning, but when you have 53 players, it's really hard to coordinate a good game plan because the players rest on Tuesday. They kind of rest on Monday too. They can't show up to the gym and stuff. They come in and you assess everything, and then physically you rest on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday you work out, right? And you show up and the coaches have the game plan for you and you assess the game plan, but it's a travel day. So what is a player to do? What is a team to do? You focus on the fundamentals, which normally in any situation you'd be like, well, shit, we can't focus on taking our shots and game planning, but we just saw what happens against the Rams. Why did we lose that game? Other than, LA needed to make sure that they had many as impressions as possible on those advertisements up till the end of the game. The main reason we lost that game is we weren't focused on the fundamentals. Whether it be, Drew Lock not being prepared, whether it be Waldron not taking advantage of good play calling and setting him up for success, Drew Lock for success, whether it be, I don't know, the list goes on. Woolen, knowing that he's going up against a shorter receiver, and so that he naturally needs to put his hands like a foot lower when pressing, because that dude's gonna put he's gonna try to make a foul and put Woolen's hands up in his face because he's just so tall, right? So you naturally need to just figure it out. Let's focus on the fundamentals. If we're gonna go into this 49ers game and they're blowing teams out 40-3 on the regular, let's not get blown out 40-3. We've already had that experience against the Ravens. And why? Because they had all these fundamentals taken care of. And pardon me while my tinnitus comes back. Oh, I hate it. Just like I hate when our team doesn't have fundamentals. There was quite a few plays in this game, though, where we did play the fundamentals, and it was obvious that Aaron Donald was just doing Aaron Donald things. There's this play on Twitter where Geno Smith delivers a ball, just a shot to, I think, JSN, who's running a crosser. And you can see Donald stunt into the weak side B gap and just lay the hammer into Geno Smith as he's delivering this ball. And people are trying to figure out who to blame. Why didn't the offensive line pick up the stunt? And when I look at the play, it's a wonderful play by the offensive line. Cross kicks the tackle outside, the pass rusher on the outside, I think is an offensive line, outside linebacker outside. Lewis takes that end and crashes him in. And the goal of the play was to create a window. My perception, I don't know. But from what I saw, the goal of the play was to create a passing lane, this big passing lane. Because if you're going to throw a dart, it's going to be a lower ball. If you're going to throw a floater, you can throw it up and over. But they wanted to throw a direct lane because it was going to be a dart right into the belly of JSN. And so in order to do plays like that, you need to have a passing lane enabled, or you need the quarterback to step outside of the pocket. And this is why all the time we see with Russell Wilson and with Kyler Murray and with all these other short quarterbacks, they have to create passing lanes for them to see and do darts. So you'll often see quick passing lanes enabled and then they'll collapse. And it's so that the quarterback can see, and then another passing lane will pop open on the 5th read and on the 7th read. And it just helps the quarterback see so that they can do those little throws over the top. But for normal quarterbacks, even a Johnny Unitas type, the towering strong arm quarterback who's never going to move, even a Peyton Manning, they're going to stand back there. And if they're throwing a dart, you still need to create a passing lane because you might hit your 6'5" offensive lineman in the back of the head, or a defensive lineman might bat that thing down. You need a passing lane. But if you're a really smart defensive lineman, like, Donald, you're going to know from watching tape, oh, this is a passing lane out of this formation. I'm not biting on the play action. I'm going to now stunt into the gap. It's not the responsibility of the offensive line on that play to watch the stunt because it's not that type of passing play. That was an aggressive passing play, which I actually have been calling for. I want more passing plays exactly like that because it helps sell play action. It's like if you're creating that passing lane, it also looks like a running lane. Because you're actively moving the defensive lineman. Whereas if you're pass protecting and you're taking a step back, you're letting all these fuckers come right at you. And so I would much rather have this really aggressive offensive line moving buddies around, and then you can figure out where they're stunting there. But in that specific play, they wanted to create the passing lane, and they had a plan. It just so happens that the dude stunted. And sure, maybe Phil Haynes would have wanted to move over, but then he would have gotten in the way of the passing lane. So he just stayed into his assignment, which was to keep pushing there. You don't break your assignment. His assignment wasn't to man and follow the stunt, in my opinion, based off of observing the tape. And when you watch the footwork of Geno Smith, here's why I think that Brown, whose assignment was on Donald on that play, or maybe it was Haynes. I think it was Brown. When you look at Geno's footwork, it wasn't necessarily, well, you could see his hips kind of shift. 1, 2, 3, 3, he's kind of looking this way. On the 5th step, he's kind of this way. Oh my God, Donald's right in front of me. But then when he hits that 7th step, his hips have already tilted and he's delivering in the face of Donald, right? The ball perfectly to JSN because there's this giant window. He doesn't. He has the space to put the ball exactly where it needs to be, and he hits the throw exactly on the 7th. And Donald really didn't have a chance to get him and kind of hit him a little late. Like, technically, he's supposed to pull up, but followed through anyways. And I talk all the time about the number of steps. In order for the stunt to work, you need to Donald needs to go an extra 1, 2, 3 just to get around his boy, the guy he's next to. He needs to take a step backwards, 1 step, a step to the right, and then a step forward just to get into position. And by that point, the quarterback has already taken 3 steps backwards. So he's in a poor spot. So no matter what he does, he's always going to be, it's like trying to catch a quarterback on a screen. The quarterback's always going to be ahead of him as long as he's following the natural play. So Geno was going to be fine. The problem is that Donald didn't really pull up after the ball was thrown. He was also screaming right at Geno. He knew exactly what was going on. Which kind of again gets to, we weren't really running the ball. And it's kind of weird that we were when Kenneth was in, and then when he pulled his oblique, we stopped. And I still don't understand why. Because we were doing really well with Charbonnet. But it follows this trend of whenever Waldron seems to get off script, or whenever he gets comfortable, or whenever he's like, I don't know, whenever he feels, like for me, my default, when I'm not quite sure what to do, when things aren't feeling right to me, I get a fullback, I put a tight end on the right side, wing right, and then I run into the weak B gap, and I get to the left hash, and I just put myself in a default position and restart everything. Like I get myself to like position 0. If you're like into breaking or anything, I'm going to start in position 0. This is my base, and we're gonna I know things are going crazy on offense right now. I'm doing this thing, I'm doing that thing. For some reason things are going crazy. We're going to get back to position 0. And we're going to roll with that. And we're just going to start sampling the field. And it kind of feels like he doesn't do that. I don't know what his position 0 is. Like when McVay was falling behind, Stafford's position 0 was to the flat on the left side. And as that started to open things up, they were able to build off of that, and then their offense got going with the help of the refs. But they still started to open things up, right? Their position 0 is the left bottom short. That's where he wanted to work, because that's how he starts spreading the field open. And where's Waldron's position 0? I can't figure it out. 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 I can't figure Where's the place that makes him feel safe in play calling? Because we even saw with Drew Lock, there was no safety. He just starts desperately calling plays all over the field, or Drew Lock was just winging it. Which comes to the point about this short week is I posted this on Twitter. I almost wonder if it would be beneficial of the team to sit Geno on Thursday and make the entire week about starting Drew Lock psychologically and let him start. Because it's so short and Geno's arm is hurt. And they already said his arm is so hurt that he's not going to do anything until Wednesday. Well, we already kind of know nobody's doing anything until Wednesday anyways. And his arm is so hurt it was getting wobbly on the field. So if you don't even know how good he's going to be till Wednesday, psychologically, make it all about Drew Lock today. Make it all about Drew Lock on Tuesday. And make it all about Drew Lock on Wednesday. And therapy for Geno on Wednesday. Start Drew Lock on Thursday and stick to the fundamentals. And if he's bad, then you can bring in Geno, who everyone is already comfortable with, and he'll just go in and take command. And I think it will be fine. But let Geno's body and arm rest, because it's not going to make a difference. If it was a Sunday game, I'd say start Geno. But because it's a Thursday game and Geno's arm is bruised and it's the tricep, which is connected to the shoulder, which is he needs for the throwing motion, it's his tricep. And it's such a hard defense. I would rather, for Shane Waldron's sake and for the offense's sake, focus entirely on Drew Lock so that they enable this psychologically, this idea of we're sticking to the fundamentals this week. We're not doing anything but fundamentals this week. I don't want them even thinking, well, we might have Geno because it's a distraction at that point. And then during the Thursday game, it's a coach's decision to bring Geno in if it's bad enough. But it's a distraction at this point because Geno can't even participate. So if you don't have a player there to practice, he's not there. So it's about Drew Lock today because he's your quarterback one today. And it's about Drew Lock tomorrow because he's your quarterback one tomorrow. And because it's such a short week, I just feel the best thing, even though Geno's the better quarterback, I'm not saying Drew's not better, is better than Geno. I'm saying Geno is better. But as far as preparation goes, if Drew starts a drive or two, it'll at least get the rhythm. You'll have the script. You can script the first couple drives with Drew, and then Geno can start later if it's not going so good. You'll have the final 3 quarters with Geno Smith. But if the week's worth of we're focusing on the fundamentals, can drill it into this team's head, I think that is incredibly more valuable than we'll let Geno Smith start the first 2 drives of the game and his arm is not ready, oh shit. And then Drew Lock is emotionally and psychologically not ready because he didn't treat the week like he's the starter either. You see what I'm getting at here? It's about getting these players mentally prepared. That's why I called the show The First Kick Seahawks. It's about getting them ready for this first kick because they're going to be in some feelings about this Rams game. And they're going to be in this pressure about this 49ers game, like, this is the season. And quite frankly, I've been saying they're 6-4. All they really need to do is just go 1-1 back and forth for the rest of the season, and they'll get 10 wins. I think they still have a good chance of making it in the wild card, even if we lose both of these 49ers games. So I'm to tell the truth, I would loathe it. I would absolutely loathe it. But if we beat the Cowboys, or hell, if we lose to the 49ers, the Cowboys, the 49ers, and the Eagles, and then we win out, technically we could still make the wild card. Technically. It wouldn't look good as far as what's the word I'm looking for? Standings go. We need to win. We need to beat the Cowboys, definitely. And beating the Eagles would be fantastic for standing. And beating the 49ers would definitely help. But if we lose the next 4 games, the season's not over, to tell the truth, because we already have 6 wins. And if we get the final, set of wins at the end of the season, because of the way that the NFC is right now, technically, we would still have an opportunity to get in. Bizarrely enough. Just thinking about it. Anyways, my goodness. Let's see. Walker is also hurt. As we know, he hurt his obliques. It's the muscles up in here in the ribs type of area. I don't know if any of you ever pulled your obliques. It's really hard to breathe, and lifting your arm up here, it sucks. And so if he's going to be holding a ball, none of that's going to be working. So it's not a matter of toughness. It's a matter of function. The muscles aren't functioning, and you can't just tough it out. So I wouldn't start him this game, and it sounds like they're not starting him. And as Michael Sean Dugar he's a reporter, but also he does from The Athletic, but he also does the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast with Christopher Kidd. I recommend you check out those two gentlemen. They do some film breakdown too. They're cool. He asked Pete Carroll today during the presser if Ken Walker would go on IR. I don't know why. Probably if there was a tear in there. But no, Ken is not going on IR. It's probably a couple weeks, I would imagine. Those things are weird. Definitely, the fact that it's Thursday, I would expect him to play versus the Cowboys. So we get this week, and then we get a full week of rest next week. Maddie Brown from the Seattle Overload got a good answer from Pete Carroll about the overfronts. And it kind of made me think he uses overfronts because of nickel situations. And so in 4-3, he doesn't need to use overfronts because they already have the extra weight. This is my opinion of what that means. In a 4-3, you have an extra 50 pounds on the outside there. So you don't need to have an overfront because they can easily hold the outside and hold containment. But in a nickel, you, instead of having 4 DBs, of course you have 5 DBs. And so you need to have an overfront with the 3 defensive linemen, and the 4, you need to have that extra weight on the outside to help with containment, and that's why they do the odd fronts. And so I liked that that Maddie got that response, and that it was a good question. It made me kind of think about it, because I think about weight a lot, but sometimes I forget about the importance of odd fronts versus under fronts and over fronts. So it was nice to see. We talked about Drew Lock. We talked about Santa Clara. The offensive line did perform well. Forsyth, interestingly enough, I think Forsyth was in for running plays. And Jason Peters was in for the passing plays, because Jason Peters had far more snaps. And I saw, like, on one of Charbonnet's best plays running right, Forsyth came in and they immediately called it. So I'm wondering if when Abe Lucas comes in, because I think he's going to start this Thursday, I'm wondering if that's the reason we're not running enough, is they don't trust our outside runners on the right side. And they think Jason Peters is, like, too old to run block, and they don't think Forsyth can do it. So they're like, oh, well, we need a guy that can do both. So they're just flipping, they don't think Forsyth can pass block. So they're just flipping between the two of them every play that they want to do a running play, and they can't sell play action. So I'm hypothesizing. And so I'm wondering if when they bring in Abraham Lucas, if they'll run more because, oh, now we can do both. And this is definitely going to be a game where if we start Drew Lock, and even if we start Geno Smith and his tricep is injured, that he just doesn't throw the ball so much. I want us to make sure that Charbonnet is Charbonnet in this game. Let's run the hell out of the ball to establish play action. It happened again where we ran like 15 times in the first half, and then in the second half we like didn't run the ball at all. And when Drew Lock came in, we ran the ball like once. Oh, and another thing, the Geno Smith checking to a run play at the very end of the game to set up the Jason Myers kick. There's been some debate about, well, what the play would have been, because remember his mic in his ear went out. And so people were like, well, he should have spiked it because there was like 25 seconds left on the clock. And if he spiked it, then they probably would have called a passing play or something like that. But also many times teams do quickly run up to the line and hand the ball off for extra yards and then spike it, which is what we did. The problem is that he only picked up like 5 yards. And so was that worth it is the big question. Well, some people broke down the tape afterwards. I don't remember. And when you look at the run, the offensive line just didn't block it right. But if they did, it would have been like a 10-yard rush, which means that it would have been a 50-yard attempt instead of a 55-yard attempt, which was about the distance that he was short. So it might have been. And when Pete Carroll was asked today on the presser, he didn't say what the play was going to be, but he did say that they weren't going to spike it. Now, I don't know if he was just protecting the player, but the idea that they weren't going to spike it, or that he should have spiked it, is like being a backseat driver. It's just like saying, well, that offensive line should have picked up the stunt. You're being a backseat driver. You don't know what the responsibility was in that situation. Are you telling me Geno Smith being the starter and that Pete Carroll and company, they have 2-minute drills all the time. Like, they specialize in 2-minute drills to set up situations exactly like that. Like, he's notorious for this. You're telling me that Geno Smith didn't know whether to hand the ball off or whether to spike it? I mean, sure, I talked about this on I think Saturday, how sometimes the brain just goes, Sometimes the brain just goes, But in that situation, Pete Carroll has drilled into his guys how to respond in that situation. And so you see players all the time, like Stafford's like, spike it, spike it, spike it. Like, and Patty Mahomes and stuff. But that's not what happened there. What happened there is he ran up and immediately took control and handed the ball off. So he has probably been taught, well, hand the ball off in that situation, considering the amount of seconds are on the clock. He probably did exactly what he was coached to do. In which case, again, good job, Geno Smith. Instead of a 60-yard attempt, it was a 55-yard attempt. You did the best you could. Now, if you personally would have liked it to be spiked, I can empathize with that. I understand. But we didn't have any timeouts. And if we were to run a play with like 25 seconds on the clock, we would have had to complete it, run up, and then spike it. And I feel like we would have had enough time to do it. But I also feel like it would have been about the same amount of yards anyways, or an incompletion. So we probably would have just ran the ball. It would have been nice maybe to see Geno Smith try to run the ball in that situation. We could have gotten a sack and taken us out of kicking range. I don't know. It felt like the wisest decision probably was to just run up there and hand the ball off, because the defense would have been gassed, which means that they probably weren't going to get a tackle for loss. Our offensive line just didn't block it well enough to let Charbonnet take off for like a 7-yard rush, which probably would have been enough to get Jason Myers a better angle on the kick, which again would have still been a hard kick. And that's the truth I have. I don't think I talked about the refs this entire Tell the Truth, other than just admitting that I needed to brush over it because of impressions and advertising. Are you proud of me? Again, everyone sees the reality of the NFL differently. Some people see the NFL like WWE. I don't. If they did, players would be talking about the sport a little bit differently. Some players kind of see the sport like WWE. Pat McAfee. Ultimately, you still have to take advantage of opportunities that are given to you. And when refs take advantage of you and give opportunities to other teams, you have to overcome those. And especially the 2014 Seahawks were constantly in long situations, and we just found a way to overcome them. And that defense would just continue to shut teams down. And that's kind of how you have to roll when you're not the market favorites. this isn't to say that the NFL chooses favorites. They choose sustainability for their corporations. They need to get as many impressions as possible every Sunday, Monday, and Thursday, and in this week Friday. And so if people are changing to games that have fewer, markets, or just logging off and going out to enjoy the sunshine of California instead of watching to the fourth quarter, it's not profitable. So sometimes you throw a flag against Witherspoon, who isn't even touching Puka Nacua. Or sometimes you let Puka Nacua get away with shoving Trey Brown at the 1 yard line so that he can have space for a touchdown. So that the Rams can stay in it. Keep the game competitive. Because if the game's competitive, maybe that really that really quiet LA stadium can maybe get a little loud in the fourth quarter. Maybe a little competitive, right? And then what happens. Which in this case was the Rams happened to find a way to win. Oops. That probably wasn't the intent of the NFL. The intent of the NFL was to keep people in their butts watching the screen until the fourth quarter was almost over. Oh well. If you disagree with me, I understand. I got a bone to pick with that for years now. It took me years to come to that feeling. Anyways, I appreciate you guys for being here. I'm going to go watch this Eagles and Chiefs game. Frankly, I don't like the Chiefs. But because of playoff seeding, I have to root for the Chiefs tonight. So let's go Chiefs. Like and subscribe. And I will catch you guys around town. God damn it. See ya. Go Hawks.